there's nobody coming to save you. There is no Superman, no Batman, no Wonder Woman. Doesn't matter what superhero you want to choose. There is no one coming to save you out of your predicament. I had to learn that pretty early. Some adults are only really learning that now. That taught me the fact that one, standing up on your own 2 feet is not only a really important skill, but it helps you kind of separate those that understand what that's like versus those that are maybe less understanding of what it really means to be responsible or to have responsibility.
Today, I'm joined by Tiyon L Simpson, a London-born brand consultant, entrepreneur, speaker, and podcast host who has spent more than 20 years studying what separates people who operate at their potential from those who don't. Welcome, Tiyon.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm excited to learn a bit more about the whole concept. It's really an interesting subject.
It is, for many reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into. But essentially, I've built my entire business around one particular statement, which we'll get into during the episode, which is that I help ambitious people become excellent.
I love that. I love it. So with that said, what is one of the most courageous things that you have done?
One of the most courageous things that I have done, I think probably, and it might sound a bit cliched, but for reasons that I will get into, for me, one of the most courageous things that I've done is actually starting a business, actually having the courage to go all in and take a real massive leap of faith, considering the need for security in my life, to actually go into the most unsecure line of work you could possibly think of, which is starting, running and managing your own business. But what's slightly different in my case, where I had to, well, myself and my family, we had to leave the UK where we were living and where I was born at the time, to go and live where my wife is from, which is where she's from, which is Bulgaria. And if we hadn't have done that, then our dream of starting a businesses plural, because between us we have 3 businesses, would never have come to light. And whilst any entrepreneur will know, it's a very bumpy road, but I think the fact that we've been able to take that leap of faith, and with all the difficulties that come with the early stages of coming with starting a business, I think that has taken a lot of courage, not just for myself but also for my wife as well, because we've had to battle a lot of fear, a lot of instability, and just the typical learning curve of growing and starting a business.
Absolutely, and that is courageous. Just uplifting your life and moving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's pretty scary. I never thought I'd ever leave the UK. I was tempted to when I was in my teens, but then I kind of settled into my career, and then I kind of realized, okay, hang on, I've got something good going on here, so maybe not. Maybe when I'm old, when I'm like in the retirement age. But then, life just has a funny old way of throwing you curveballs from time to time. So I think that in and of itself, I think one of the biggest bits of feedback I got was, why didn't you move to what people would perceive as a more sensible country, like Spain, Canada, or America? But we chose Bulgaria, Eastern Europe of all places. Why would we go there? And people from that part of the world are coming to the UK. It's like, why are you going back? It's like, well, hey, look, if I explain it, it makes sense. But at the same time, one of the smartest things any entrepreneur can do is sniff out a market, sniff out opportunities. So we not only saw an opportunity to not just start an international business in Bulgaria, but we've noticed markets for what we do, which is branding and marketing, in the country itself, that we have been able to exploit so far. So yeah, there was logic behind the decision, rather than just, hey, let's just pick a random place on the map and just move there.
That's brilliant. You often talk about the gap between ambition and capability. Mm-hmm. What first sparked your interest in understanding that gap?
I think a lot of that stemmed from my own personal journey. And whilst it would be silly to either build a business or build a philosophy based on one's own experience, I think one thing that has become obvious and apparent, certainly over the past 15 years or so, in terms of when I started my corporate career, for example, through to leaving the corporate world in central London, and then starting a business and doing that for the past 3 or 4 years, is that there are many capable people that I've come across. There are many capable people in this world, but a lot of the time, despite their obvious capability and their obvious intelligence and their obvious ability to do something greater than what they're currently doing, many of them don't reach that promised land of realizing what their ambition is. Now, I said this on a podcast fairly recently that ambition is not something tangible. You don't hold ambition in your hands. You can't go out to the shop and buy ambition. Ambition is merely a placeholder for a journey, so to speak, of one person who is capable or believes they're capable, going through that journey of ambition, through to that place of excellence, fulfillment, reward, opportunity. And that was something I was missing in my own life, because I knew for pretty much a long time that I was not deserving, but I was capable and had the ability to do more than my pay grade was showing. And it became obvious whilst I was in the corporate world that in order to progress and proceed, it's more than just being good at your job. You know, there are various politics and you know, you need to be friends with the right people, and you've got to be quite opportunistic, and there are many other reasons as to why people get promoted or people are given opportunities in that world. And I was struggling to understand why that wasn't me. Now, it could be the case where, you know, someone could turn around and say, well, weren't you just not very good at your job? You know, you may have thought that you were, but maybe you weren't, or maybe your personality just didn't fit in with that particular culture, which I think there could have been an element of that to it, because not everybody that's capable deserves opportunity. Because one thing that I also say as well is that there's no point in being capable or having capability if you're not willing to put in the work to get to where you want to get to. So it's almost like you're not just going to sit at your desk. Say if you're in an office job or a corporate job, for example, you're just sat there doing work day to day. No one's going to sit there, look over your shoulder, watch what you're doing, or just look at you and realize, oh, hang on, that person's capable. They're going to get promoted. Wrong. There's a lot more nuance to it, and this is where I've learned several things. One, there is a noticeable gap between people who are stuck, frustrated, annoyed, suffering from a real lack of confidence to why they're not achieving more, why they're not doing more. So that's a pain point that I noticed quite quickly. And that's a pain point that I noticed as well, because I kind of gave up on the corporate career and started doing this myself once I'd realized that gap. The second thing is that without understanding that there are people that maybe are perceived to be lesser than, or not capable, or not intelligent, or not deserving, these people are still getting opportunities, they're still getting rewards, they're still getting everything that a quote-unquote capable person is not getting. So it's almost like you kind of, in my head, I had to kind of analyze it. Like, why is this? Why isn't the capable person achieving the same as the non-capable, or the perceived non-capable person? But the perceived non-capable person is actually achieving what they're achieving because they understand positioning, they understand brand, they understand visibility, they understand the power of relationships and connection. You don't necessarily need to be a brain surgeon to understand all these things. So I'm thinking to myself, why don't I create a business, or why don't I create a coaching or consultancy service that takes that part of what the non-person is doing well, and why don't we take that and apply that to what people are doing well? And that's kind of how the philosophy of my business, Tiyon L Simpson, was born, because I, through that, created a coaching service, 2 podcasts, I make content, there's literature, I'm writing a book, all this sort of stuff is like one great big ecosystem to help ambitious people become excellent. But in reality, it's really helping capable people get the opportunities that they deserve or that they are capable of. So that's kind of like a top-down version of why I do what I do. But a lot of it was born out of my own experience.
Yes, and to go on to your experience, your story includes overcoming significant adversity, including periods of homelessness.
That's
Looking
right.
back, what did these experiences teach you about yourself?
Yeah. So we'll start with the 2 periods of homelessness. So the first one actually occurred when I was very young. I was about 16 or 17 when I was first made homeless. But to kind of go back a few years before that, I had realised when I was about 12 or 13 that I was becoming depressed, or I was becoming afflicted with the symptoms of depression, the illness. And it was something that had kind of carried on for a prolonged period of time. But then also as well, I'd also realised that I had no interest or very little interest in pursuing an academic career. The problem with that is that I am the child of an immigrant parent. My mother is from Jamaica, and she came to the UK in the late 1980s, and my dad is a second generation Brit. His parents came to the UK from Jamaica from the 1950s. So very much that mindset of, you've come from a poorer nation to a more prosperous nation. And obviously, any good parent just wants the best for their kid. So I would never sort of turn around and say, oh, well, I was kind of, sold a dream or sold something that was going to be good for me in the long run. However, I realized that what I was being shoehorned into, i.e. the academia, the career, the university, the job, that kind of stuff, wasn't for me. I was very much a sporty, creative person, love music, still love music. I wanted to be a footballer when I was young. That didn't happen. And I found myself becoming more and more depressed, not just with the fact that I couldn't do what I wanted to do, but with other life circumstances, plus the illness, leading into a breakdown in relationship, and ended up becoming homeless as a young man. So through that, I had to learn how to grow up quickly. And I think one of the things that I learned 20 years ago when that happened was there's nobody coming to save you. There is no Superman, no Batman, no Wonder Woman. Doesn't matter what superhero you want to choose. There is no one coming to save you out of your predicament. I had to learn that pretty early. Some adults are only really learning that now. That taught me the fact that one, standing up on your own 2 feet is not only a really important skill, but it helps you kind of separate those that understand what that's like versus those that are maybe less understanding of what it really means to be responsible or to have responsibility. So that's part one. And then let's fast forward a few years to the second time I was made homeless. And after that period, I was about 24, 25, but I was in a very different place in my life. I'd gone through many health-related challenges, mental-related challenges, relationship challenges, and I was kind of coming out the other side, and I was kind of thinking more about my career and what I wanted to do with my life. And then I was hit with an unexpected circumstance, and then the house that I was living in with 3 housemates at the time got repossessed, and we were just left homeless again. And I'm like, great, here we go again. So it was almost like needing that understanding of, well, when you get knocked down again, or for the new how many times you've been knocked down, how do you get back up again? That is also, again, another maybe early entrepreneurial lesson I learned was, it doesn't matter how hard you get knocked down or you get hit, you have to keep getting up, because if you stay down in your business, you're still going to stay down. No one is going to pay you. No one's going to come looking for you. You kind of need to understand that life can be cruel. If you learn to subdue it and control it, then you can kind of almost be a master of your own destiny to an extent. So in that sense, Anita, I was very much better prepared for what I had to deal with the councils, and in the end, that problem solved itself relatively quickly. So that was a good thing. But then I suppose by my own admission, by the time I was 25, I had very much become disconnected from my peer group. Many of my friends that I've grown up with, people who know that at that similar sort of age, were very much in their jobs. They've done the university experience. They're in their jobs. They're probably buying homes and getting married at that time. Very much far away from that. But I'd learned something more than maybe what they didn't know, which was kind of how to survive in the real world. So that has been, I'd say, 2 of the major things. I think resilience is probably one of them. I think as I've now, become a fully fledged entrepreneur, I think one of the key skills that anyone can learn or anyone develops is the knowing and know-how of how to be resilient. Yeah. Without it, you'll struggle. And in a way, I kind of am thankful for those experiences. I don't want to go through them again, but at least now I can kind of sort of turn around and say, look, hey, if anyone is going through something that they think is insurmountable or is like, this is life changing. This is disastrous. I'm never gonna see the wood from the trees. You don't know what that experience is preparing you for in the future. So it may seem crappy now, but just hang on. There is a purpose in your pain, essentially.
Totally agree with you. And resilience and courage is absolutely the key in what keeps us moving forward. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, how did your experience in corporate financial services shape the entrepreneur you are today?
This is a great question, and I actually give more credit to my time in corporate than I would like to personally. I'm pretty open about talking about it in this way now because obviously I have no plans to ever go back to the corporate world. And they say never burn your bridges. I'm happy to set a fire to the bridge and watch it burn. Because I'd probably say that the 60-70% of the experience was pretty bad, but there was a considerable part, the 30%, which was really good, and that's the part that I want to focus on. One thing that I really learned the most about working in corporate financial services, and with that, just for a bit of context, I worked for some of the most prestigious companies in London. We're talking clients with tens of millions, hundreds of millions, very, 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 very wealthy people. And to be able to have access, when I say access, I mean to be able to converse with these types of people on a near daily basis, it helped to shape a lot in terms of my own mindset as to how to communicate in a way to get anybody to listen to you and to do business with you. And what I mean by that is, I obviously did not come from a rich household. I've never been what I would perceive to be rich or wealthy. Hopefully one day, but you never know. But
Absolutely.
if I was walking along the street and I bumped into a client or someone that I was working with, they wouldn't give me the time of day. They wouldn't even say hello. They wouldn't, they wouldn't even acknowledge that I even exist. Just another, what they like to call the great unwashed. The general public. It's very much a hierarchy, class hierarchy. But when you're in a working environment, there's no doors, there's no barriers, there's no divisions. At the same time, they are needed. But funny enough, someone that is extremely wealthy is actually needing something from you. They need you to do something for them. So it's almost like the tables have turned because for once, you, the one without the wealth, is in control. You have the power. You have the understanding that without your button pressing or email sending or phone conversation having, what this rich person, what this wealthy, successful person wants to do can't get done unless you do it. Right? And no matter how much they want to, stomp their feet, throw tantrums, and believe me, there was a lot of that going on. It doesn't get done unless I or my colleagues or my managers or anyone actually says that it can happen. So understanding power dynamics was definitely an important thing, but also as well building relationship. Now, obviously, through my background, through my experiences, through everything that I've achieved in my career so far, I am now, or was, or even now, fully comfortable with talking to a CEO of $1 billion company, £1 billion company, than talking to a homeless person on the street and everyone in between. And one philosophy that I would hopefully give to everyone or anyone that's listening or anyone that's watching is that how you treat people matters. It actually matters more than you realize. And it really doesn't matter whether you're dealing with someone that you want to impress or someone that you think is beneath you. You don't know the impact of your conversation and your actions when you are dealing with people. You could end up, kissing someone's ass that's going to basically do nothing for you in the future, and you're wasting your time with trying to impress someone that isn't even going to notice you. But then there is maybe someone that you might think is maybe not as important as the other person. But if you treat that other person with respect, dignity, and most important, care, which I'll get into in just a moment, then you don't know how that will not only impact your working relationship with that person, but what that could do for your reputation in the future. That is something I carried over to me in business. I treat everybody with the utmost care. Doesn't matter who it is. Even if it's those, I get a lot of spam sales emails from people trying to win business from me. Even when I'm replying to those people saying, I'm not interested, I'm not really basically turning around and telling them to F off and go away. It's like I need to be able to handle each and every relationship with some degree of care. Not so much where you've got to, write fluffy emails and be all sickly sweet and whatever. But you need to have element of care, because you don't know what seeds you're planting in people that will reap a harvest further on down the line. So it's a philosophy that I've learned, not just in corporate service, but throughout my entire career, that one of the most important things that you can do for your client or for people in general is to actually care about them, listen to them. God gave you two of these and one of these for a reason. So listening to their needs, helping to solve their problems, building relationships. There are people now that maybe we obviously can't stay in contact because of client confidentiality or whatever. But even still, whilst I've been building my business, I've been able to befriend and build relationships with very influential people because of my attitude, because I am actually demonstrating an attitude of care and service. The other one, service towards them. So all of this stuff has not been has not been in vain. I just wanted to add one more thing, just to kind of answer your question. What else did I learn about my time in corporate financial services? The importance of quality is another thing. Everybody appreciates quality, no more than than the clients that you serve or the clients that you serve. And I don't think that anybody, if you are trying to do something yourself, or at least trying to perceive or portray yourself in a certain way, should not do so without some degree of quality or excellence behind it. Because that doesn't so much symbolize that, oh, hey, I'm just going to be this pretentious fart for this person because that's what I think they want. The attitude should be, hang on a second, I want to display my own abilities, or let's go back to that word capability. Let's go back to displaying that capability as best as I possibly can, that demonstrates that I am a person of excellence. I am a person of quality. I want to deliver a level of service that is not only memorable, but one that says, hey, I not only care about what I do, but I want to deliver the best for my client. Doesn't matter who it is. And again, that was something that was ingrained. I had to learn that, even though maybe not necessarily something I even thought about, but how that has carried on is because, certain people expect certain things and certain clients expect certain things. And whilst that can be perceived as being demanding or pretentious or whatever, people have certain expectations for a reason. I've now learned that I'm allowed to have that myself. I'm allowed to have certain expectations. I'm allowed to want a certain level of quality when I'm dealing with people. I want to be able to expect a level of service or communication that meets my needs. You are allowed to have or set standards in not only your own life, but in your own business. And more importantly, if someone or something doesn't meet those standards, you are allowed to dismiss it. I think a lot of people are too, we're both in the UK, a lot of people are too, it may be a British thing, but I think it's quite common globally that to be polite is kind of say, yes, that's okay, even though secretly you're saying, I effing hate this, but the politeness is like, oh, that's okay, no problem, we'll do that. And then one of the worst things you can do, and this is something I personally hate, is ghosting. I would rather someone tell me, no, I don't like it, or no, I don't want to work with you, than to ghost you. I think ghosting is probably the worst possible thing you can do, not just with relationship building, but in business. It would be much better to hear the word no than to be ignored or to be disregarded.
I couldn't agree more with everything you've just said. And absolutely, there's no harm in saying no.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Many people face difficult circumstances and become stuck there. So what helped you move forward?
Two things. I think I have to kind of split this answer in two. I think the reason why is because there was the attitude pre-wife, pre-kids, and then the attitude post-wife, post-kids. Mm-hmm. So before I got married and had children, I think there was a little part of me that didn't want to feel, and I don't want to cast versions on anyone that maybe has been through something similar, or has dealt with mental health, or has dealt with homelessness, or dealt with any other kind of adversity in their life. But there was a little part of me that was just like, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And there's even a little part of me that thought, I'm better than that. And that's quite controversial to say because, someone could turn around and say, well, how dare you? How dare you say that you're better than, depression or life circumstances, whatever. But there was just this little part of me that was just like, I know that this doesn't have to be my life. I'm seeing around me that others, even though they may be hiding what they are going through, or maybe hiding the difficult parts of their life. And people like me, for example, I wear my heart on my sleeve, so I'm a bit more open with stuff like this. But I always thought that my life had to be more than just someone that is just suffering all the time. And I didn't want to be the victim. I didn't want to be, I'm still a man after all, and I didn't want to be seen as weak. I didn't want to be seen as someone that is just constantly having his hand out, someone that's constantly asking for help, someone that is just constantly just struggling all the time. I think there's got to be a point, and I know many people have gone through this where you just turn around and say, enough is enough. Like, at what point is this going to stop? So getting out of that was not easy. It wasn't just very much a case of just turning the light bulb on and saying, hey, look, my life is going to change now, because I tried that. I tried that many times. It didn't work. But there was something where I had developed relationships with certain people where I needed almost mentoring or almost befriending. In that case, I was very much in my early 20s at the time, but almost like I needed someone that was a bit older, like an older brother, an older sister, or like surrogate parents, so to speak. And thankfully, I was able to encounter those people in my life at the time, and the impact that they had on me was profound. It was almost like, these were people that gave their time. They were able to listen to what I had to say. They were able to help me through things that I was going through. Some of them offered practical help, which was obviously great, and I'm grateful. I was very grateful for it. But as I mentioned before, I didn't want to be that person that was constantly taking. I wanted to be someone that was able to stand on his own 2 feet, but also to be able to give back as well, which is something that I'm obviously looking to do now that I'm a lot older. So there was obviously that element of it, but then also, I had to kind of basically develop an element of faith and hope and something to look forward to. Because, one of the key symptoms of having depression is hopelessness. It's almost like, well, nothing's going to change. I'm better off dead, or I'm just constantly sad all the time. It's almost like how did that change from being someone that was hopeless to having hope? And I think one of the key things is who you surround yourself with. It's the activities that you partake in. If you are someone that is aspirational, someone that is upwardly mobile, hanging around people that are doing drugs, partying all the time, and just taking part in, what I would call lewd behaviour is not going to be something that's going to propel your life. However, if you are going around people that are more aspirational, that are more intelligent, that are more grounded and more measured in their life, then that's clearly the better crowd to follow. That's clearly the crowd that's going to help you. And there's a scientific term, and I'm not really much of a scientist, but there's a scientific term that I learned recently. No, I'm really not. I really hated science. But there is a term that I learned very recently from the creator Gary Vaynerchuk. And he was on a podcast recently with the entrepreneur Magritte, and they were talking about osmosis. And whilst I'm not particularly interested in the actual scientific term of what osmosis means, but in terms of the metaphorical term of osmosis is if you surround yourself with people that you want to be like or aspire to be like, naturally you are going to end up picking up traits and being like that person. Another practical example of that is, how does a lion become a lion? A lion can hang around with zebras and end up becoming a zebra, but it's still a lion. But how does a lion actually learn to act like a lion, hunt like a lion, roar like a lion? It hangs around other lions, right? So if you want more for your own life, and this is what I was thinking at the time, if I want more for my life, if I don't want to be that person anymore, I need to hang around those people that don't have that mindset, those that know how to build, those that know how to grow, those that are more spiritually grounded and actually have some kind of tangible faith to kind of not leech off, but to kind of learn from. So being around that actually really helped. And with post kids, I have 2 daughters and a beautiful wife, and that part is slightly different because there's an element of responsibility behind it now, where my decisions are not so much on me anymore. It directly affects them. And whilst my wife is completely capable of doing things herself, and she has her own business and she is doing her own thing, and I'm really proud of her for doing that, ultimately, as the man of the house, I still need to do my part. I can't just sit on the sofa and rely on her to bring in money. Right? I still need to have that element of responsibility. So having taken responsibility for my own life over the past 20 years, that is something that has become quite natural, normal for me. And as a result, my wife doesn't have to worry so much. My kids are fed, my kids are stable. And it's almost like knowing that I have to be responsible for them is almost like a shot in the arm of motivation to keep going. Because if I stop, or if I become lax, or if I become lazy, then that means that my kids don't have new clothes. That means they don't have new shoes. They can't eat. And I don't want to be that person that is going to deny that to them because of my own selfishness, incompetence, and laziness, or dare I say it, lack of capability. So, yeah, very much. I almost like to say that I've lived a life that maybe two people have lived so far. I'm not even 40 yet, but for all of these things that I've learned, it's almost like now I'm in a position where I want to give back. I want to be able to talk to or speak to people that are young or in their early 20s, or even my peers, to say like, hey, look, listen, you're not washed up even at this age. You still have so much more to give.
Of
You know,
course.
it's like your life is not over. But then at the same time, if maybe you have not dealt with anything serious in your life, that time will come. Right? It always does. It happens to everyone at some point where they have to deal with something that they would perceive as monumental or life changing. And a lot of them aren't actually mentally prepared to actually deal with it. A lot of them bury it under the carpet. I'm not going to hopefully not insult anyone by saying what I'm going to say next. This is why we have alcoholics. This is why we have people that are addicted to drugs, because they haven't had I'll say it, because they haven't had the life experience, or a better word would be exposure. They haven't had the exposure to that level of adversity, and they can't cope with it. So they turn to drink, and they turn to drugs, they turn to any other kind of vice to kind of bury their head in the sand. Gambling is another one, to kind of bury their head in the sand, so they don't have to deal with the emotional and the psychological realities of life, because this is what life is. And if we can help people to build a level of courage and resilience, and level of responsibility, taking responsibility for your own life, then it's only going to benefit others, and it will benefit the next generation more, because many of us are parents now. So, we have to impart these things in our kids.
So, what are the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make when you're trying to build visibility?
Visibility, excellent. So, in terms of what I do now, I help people. Well, obviously, I help ambitious people become excellent, but also I help three specific target audiences: entrepreneurs, whether they're business owners, solo entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs of any level, any kind; professional people, so whether they are doctors, dentists, accountants, any kind of profession whatsoever, as long as they've got some level of experience and they want to build a more visible personal brand; and also creative people, so artists, musicians, content creators, anyone that's in the creative field. And one of the biggest mistakes that, I say one of them, there's many mistakes that people make, is that they think that just by, for example, we're very much in a digital age now, we're very much in the case of social media is king, that just by posting, that's going to get them noticed. All they're literally doing is just putting either a picture or a post or anything without any kind of strategy or any kind of thought behind it. And just by putting any kind of post on social media, that is just going to get noticed, and they're going to go viral, and they're going to be happier. It's going to be happy ever after for them. Wrong. With anything, pretty much anything, there needs to be some kind of plan or some kind of strategy behind it, right? So, why I said earlier about nobody coming to rescue you, no one's coming to save you. Nobody is going to recognize your capability unless you actually put it out there and demonstrate why you're capable and why you should be visible. Not why you deserve to be visible, but why you should be visible. And how do you do that? You do that by building authority. How do you build authority? Be an expert or be a spokesperson in what it is that you do. It really doesn't matter what it is you do, because thank God we have the internet now, where literally anything, whether you're a model train enthusiast, or whether you collect Barbie dolls, or whether you want to study osmosis, if you're a scientist or whatever, it really doesn't matter what you're into or what your expertise is. The internet can give you a platform to create a visible business and build a visible personal brand. One other mistake I think I just wanted to add at this point was, I think people have that misconception of building a personal brand means building a LinkedIn profile and or being an influencer on Instagram or TikTok and just doing silly dances and doing crazy stuff, and that's what building a personal brand means. Again, that could not be more wrong. Being an influencer is actually a career choice. It's actually now it's a more respected career choice, but it's still a career choice. Being an influencer is not building a personal brand. An influencer needs to build a personal brand to become a successful influencer, but anybody can build a personal brand to become more credible, have more authority, and be more visible in their own field. Right. So getting rid of those misconceptions that building a personal brand means you need to act a fool, basically, means that you don't really understand what it means. It means that you are building a version of yourself. It's almost like you're building a professional version of yourself that is cultivating a reputation that goes so much further than what you perceive it to be. Whether you realize it or not, everybody has a personal brand, right? Whether you choose to build it professionally is another thing. But even on a day-to-day basis, even if someone that isn't even thinking about their personal brand, everybody has a personal brand. Because I guarantee if you're with a group of people and you walk away from that group of people, those other people will probably end up start talking about you, and they develop reputations. Tiyon is lazy. Tiyon is stupid. Tiyon is bad hygiene. These things can formulate a personal brand that you're not even aware of. It's your reputation that's speaking when you're not even there. But in a professional sense, the beautiful thing about it when you build a personal brand is that you get to control the narrative. You get to control what people say about you. And if you develop in that way of developing, cultivating, and being strategical with how you personally are building your personal brand, it doesn't really matter what everybody else is saying, because chances are, if you built a personal brand strong enough, people that talk will end up enhancing that brand rather than destroying it. The only way that they're able to destroy it is that if your words don't match up with what you're building. So I can't turn around and say that I'm a billionaire. I wear a Rolex. I'm in hedge funds or whatever, because everybody knows that's not what I do. So I'm not going to build a reputation in that area, because everyone outside will know that I'm a liar. And then guess what? My personal brand is not going to be I'm this billionaire working in hedge funds. My personal brand will be Tiyon's a liar.
If there was one key takeaway you want every listener to walk away with today, what would that be?
It's actually not going to be related to the business. This is going to be something that will be applicable to life. And that will be that if you are a capable person, if you are an intelligent person, if you are someone that maybe suffers a little bit with self-esteem issues or confidence or whatever, you don't need to sit in the shadows. You don't need to restrict yourself. You don't need to sit and wonder for the rest of your life, what if? There are, without not being true to yourself, ways that we can, say we, or people like myself, can help in terms of helping you become that capable, visible person that you've always wanted to be. But in order to do that, you need to take the first step. No one is going to come, reach their hand out, pull you up, and force you to become a capable, visible person. Every good decision starts with the first step. So all I would basically encourage anyone listening, and this is even for myself, this is even for you, this is for anyone, is that all work, and in order to go somewhere, you need to start walking. So whether you start doing things yourself, watching content, or reading books, or at least doing something to help to better your life, just start. Even if you don't have the confidence yet, confidence can come later, but at least start doing something. It will compound. All work works. So all I would just say to anyone is just look, just keep going, keep walking, start walking, keep going.
Brilliant, love it. So where can the listeners find you online, your website, podcast?
Yes, so I have a whole range of content myself. So if you guys want to connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Facebook and LinkedIn, my name is Tiyon L Simpson. Quite easy to find. On Instagram, at Tiyon L Simpson. I'm not on TikTok, but I am on YouTube as well. I have a business YouTube channel which has everything. That's all my content, all my podcast appearances. I'll talk about Life of Something Extraordinary in just a moment, but that channel is TLSE Vision. I also have a free downloadable for anyone that may want to understand more about maybe any mistakes that they're making with their personal brand, or maybe wanting to kind of understand a little bit more as to what this world is and how I could potentially help. Hopefully I'll send you the link, Anita. It's a free downloadable that I created, 5 mistakes that people make with their personal branding. Free to download, and if you want to have a conversation with me, then please book a discovery call. But more importantly, I host a podcast myself called The Life of Someone Extraordinary, where I interview other entrepreneurs, other professionals, other creative people. We talk about life, we talk about life's journeys, we talk about the successes, we talk about the failures, everything in between. And we also would like to leave our listeners with something tangible. So hopefully something that you've learned something new. And it's from a range of different industries, from sports to psychology to business to finance to pretty much everything in between. So there's something for everybody.
That's brilliant. And thank you for sharing your insights, your wisdom, and your stories with us today. By doing so, I know you've impacted so many people and made a difference. I truly want to acknowledge you for that. Tiyon L Simpson.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. So we are all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast here. What is your definition of courage?
Courage is facing the unknown. I think facing the unknown and being completely fearless with what the unknown has to offer. I think if you approach things that you don't know, or approach situations that you may be afraid of, that's the first roadblock from stopping you to live the life that you actually want to live. So if you see a door or see an opportunity that is completely unknown or something that you've never done before, one of the most courageous things you can do, as I said before, is literally just taking the first step. Even if you take the first step and take a step back, you've still taken that first step. But at least if you've taken that step back, you can still see what the unknown looks like. So the decision is yours. Do you want to be that person that's going to be courageous enough to take that step into the unknown and basically plant 10 toes down and stay in that place of the unknown and experience everything that you may be missing out on, or opportunities that you think were beyond you?